Ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction, and this is Unbiased History, Barbarians at the Gate. This is the 18th video of 19 video series. The last two videos are left. It's all going to shit after this, isn't it? It's been going to shit past few videos, but now it's really going to shit. Last two videos are left. Barbarians are at the gate. The Huns has been found out. I didn't know who the Huns were. I have heard of the name Attila, but somebody pointed out in the comments that Huns were basically this ancestor to Mongolians. I think Mongolians, how dominant Mongolians were, so Huns were dominant too, just like them in the past. So the Attila, the Hun, so they basically dominated a massive region and they took down Rome. Apparently, that's what we're gonna witness. In the last video, Doherty was hyping up that there's a great evil coming, Apparently they are the Huns. Everybody was scared. The Sassanid Empire was scared too. So something like that has never happened in this, at least in this series. So that was a chain, like, okay, this is not some small thing. All the gods and everybody was scared. Visigoths took shelter inside Rome, because somebody gave them shelter inside Rome. Rome is already falling apart, let's be honest. In the past, Augustus, Aurelian, none of them would have done this. They wouldn't have given them shelter. But they are inside the Rome, and they start to burn Rome, burn everything around. At the same time, the Huns are coming, so there is already fear in the air apparently. And we saw in the Imperial Wrath last episode how Emperor Rose called Julian, who wasn't a Chad, but there was a montage. He did lots of training and became a Chad apparently. So there was that. In the end, like I said, Visigoths are inside Rome. In the end, the Huns arrived, and that's what we're gonna witness in Barbarians at the Gate. Like, Huns are going to be there. And now I think there is not going to be another, Chad Emperor, because, I'm pretty sure it's about to go down now. Maybe there are one or two here and there, but they're going to be insignificant, because I don't see them recovering now. The Huns are at the gates. Alright, let's watch this video.
Somewhere that's special for me, somewhere that I can be free. I am here, can't you see? A chest made of debris, suffocating always. The rain begins to fall while the sky's asleep and gray. I pick a flower to compliment my better side. Is there a color to give me luck to stay alive? Hope was stolen from me. Still I want to believe. Helpless and weak, broken and meek, my heart is torn. Drowning in pain, sting of the shame, tattered and worn. Echoing loud today, there's a voice calling this way. Just out of reach, all that I seek until dawn. Limits will break, shatter my fate, I will go on. Somewhere that's special for me, somewhere that I can be free. I am here, can't you see?
So Doherty is basically making a proper episode, isn't he? There is a literal, first numbering and credits at the start. Music is playing. This is awesome, man. Now there are 30 minutes videos. The past there were 37 minute videos. So I love it how his channel started with small, with 5 minute, 10 minute videos, and now we are here. His quality has gone up immensely.
These were times of tragedy. The empire was falling apart, the barbarians invading, and the civilians terrorized. Condemned to evil in his blood, the unlikeliest of heroes was born into a dying era. For these were times of tragic heroes, the times of Flavius Stilicho. Cursed with a Vandal father, Stilicho was blessed with hatred for his Germanic half, and sided entirely with his mother's Roman half, who ended up raising him. Getting himself thoroughly Romanized and suppressing his evil nature, Stilicho thus chose to join the legions and serve the empire
Cries is not relevant from now on.
where he grew to love. Meanwhile, the East had just lost both its emperor and legions to a gigantic Gothic horde, and the only ones in their way were Valentinian's heirs, that is, Gratian, his sister, and baby brother. With no reinforcements available and being no commander himself, Gratian sought help as quickly as possible. Cue Theodosius, having been living in Hispania ever since his father's death, where he married and eventually had 2 kids, Honorius and Arcadius, and lazy, cowardly idiot doesn't even begin to... We'll get there. Thing is, he was back in Moesia by the time of the catastrophe, so as the nearest general around, Gratian gave full control over the east, plus some of Illyria, to Theodosius, naming him as the Eastern Augustus. But however numerous and savage the Gothic hordes were, they were unable to breach the city walls built during Diocletian's reign using force alone. Thus given time to prepare, yet lacking Roman soldiers, Theodosius went full-on pro-barbarian, be it with citizens or mercenaries.
What Diocletian did was awesome, wasn't it? He built massive walls. I mean, that stabilized the whole cities, because before Diocletian, cities used to fall left and right because another usurper comes and just try to take its city, and they just basically get in. Now there are massive walls and nobody can get inside. That's going to give payment to Constantinople and its walls, which didn't fall until what 15th century or something. That was an awesome decision by Diocletian.
He fully incorporated them into the army. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And after haphazardly gathering a ragtag of plebs, retired veterans, and Goths, he attacked the Goths. And the Goths he hired betrayed him. Who saw that coming? I did. You did too. And true.
Yeah, everybody did. I mean, Romans for 1,000 years basically stomped on Goths. I mean, it doesn't matter what, they're not going to be, really loyal to you. Come on, man.
Due to the ancient Roman tradition of never giving up no matter how bad things got, Theodosius gave up fighting, and began to grovel at the Goths' feet, begging them to stop ransacking the countryside, even granting asylum to another Gothic horde, and burying their king with full honors. To a Goth, really. Hearing of how low the Roman emperor was willing to go, the Goths then laid their demands on Theodosius, who bent over backwards to fulfill them all. Completely caving in, the Goths were allowed to settle inside the empire.
There you go. I think we should stop the series right here, because Rome has officially fallen. Rome has fallen, let's be honest. Right there. Everything else is just formality from now on. Oh my god. From, Julius Caesar, then Augustus, Trajan, Aurelius, and now that idiot there. The Romans used to just walk up there and crush every single Goth they see. It's like, Germanic tribes, Goths, Visigoths, they just got crushed there as soon as proper Roman emperor came. And this guy is begging to them. Rome has fallen.
Under their own leaders, though not Fritigern, fully armed and exempt from ever being Romanized and thus civilized, a complete betrayal of Rome's oldest tradition. While in the West, Gratian grew more and more hated by his own men for rather idiotic reasons, really. Plebs, half Germans, what are you gonna do? And the first to betray him wasn't Marabaudus, no. Instead it was a dude that named himself Magnus Maximus, the best, the greatest, who wasn't either. And by the way, he was a friend of Theodosius. And once he heard that his friend was now Eastern Augustus, the best pulled all legions he could from Britannia, and faced Gratian near Lutetia, where Marabaudus then betrayed him, together with the Germanic man. The greatest thus hunted down Gratian down to Lugdunum, where he was caught and murdered. And before continuing to Rome's 87th civil war, I must mention the man serving as governor of Milan, Ambrose. It's strange, really. One day he's just a civic official, and the next is mediating a Nicene and Arian dispute over who should be the next bishop of the city, and the other the crowds were acclaiming him as the compromise candidate. After hiding and eventually accepting, thanks to Gratian when he was alive, Ambrose then proved to be a terrible compromise candidate, becoming a Nicene extremist the very next day. Be it Arian or pagan, he hated them all, something he let everyone around him know, including a pleb named Augustine, who he baptized. Under Ambrose, the statue of Victoria, favored by Elagabalus, placed in the Senate by
Yeah, okay. Doesn't matter how to already put it. I think that this was an elaborate plan of him to be in that position. He can't just mistakenly get in that position. It was his all, genius plan to just be in the right position right there.
Augustus at the foundation of the empire, captured from Pyrrhus way back in the day and known as the Altar of Victory, was removed. Deus help us all. Later, as the greatest demanded Valentinian II to come to him so he could kill him, Justina and her lackeys then sent
Why is he calling me greatest, man? I love it. There's always this tone by Dovetti that's just, insulting. He's not gonna call him with his, Roman name. He's gonna translate it. The greatest called.
Ambrose to go waste his time, which, being a bishop, he did perfectly. And once the Alps were properly defended, the pissed Magnus then learned that Theodosius wasn't happy about him really. For as he ruled the East, Theodosius was engaged in the same kind of anti-Arianism, executing an Arian priest in the first legal accusation of heresy in history. While Ambrose, once faced by Empress Justina, an Arian, he refused on ever making any concessions, the religious stability of the empire be damned. Then Justina began complaining to Theodosius. Theodosius then asked Ambrose for tiny concessions, and Ambrose told him to fuck off and be more extreme.
Religious instability is a massive thing, man. It breaks the unity of an entire empire, as we've seen in the past in history, in every places. So this is a really critical time. The Huns are at the gates. Visigoths are already inside, burning everything, and this is not time to, create instability in the region like this.
Extremist. And as Roman politics descended into petty Christcockery, Stilicho rose through the ranks of the army, together with Frankish general, Arbogast, becoming Theodosius' best generals, who both would come in handy when the greatest invaded Italy and Justina and her children fled east. Being, persuaded by Justina, Theodosius promised to give her asylum and go retake the west for her. And so, after being married to Valentinian II's sister, Theodosius then sent Stilicho east to secure a peace with the Sassanids, while he followed Arbogast west to go fight his war for him against the best, the greatest. Once Stilicho arrived in Tesphon, with Shapur
The best, the greatest.
II having died years ago, Shapur III was all too eager for peace, knowing well what was to come.
Can't you feel his presence? Is he talking about Attila? Damn. After knowing this, it just makes it better. Like, we know what he's talking about. In the past episode, he was just hyping it up. Obviously, people who knows about the Huns, they've immediately figured it out. But this doesn't happen to me quite often. I usually know the history of what's gonna happen, what are the key points. I had no idea about the Huns. So this last episode was really awesome. They were hyping up something's coming. Like, what the hell is coming?
Guarding the entrance to Italy, Arbogast and Theodosius then defeated the army guarding it, and then cornered him against the Alps, eventually making the garrison betray him, leading to his execution. So much for his name, only one man was true to it. But it would be all for naught, because after recalling Justina and Valentinian to Mediolanum, Theodosius named Arbogast as their Magister Militum, aka military dictator, and continued endlessly shilling for barbarians. So pro-barbarian he was that when some Gothic federati were slaughtered by a pleb mob in Thessalonica, Theodosius took the side of the barbarians and, I kid you not, sent a Gothic horde to slaughter thousands of Roman civilians in the city. The Roman emperor ordered this, and seeing the opportunity...
Oh yeah, now he has locked trust of his people, hasn't he? This is the time. This is time to do all this, cause religious instability, and now taking the sides of barbarians and killing Romans. Yeah, this is the time. This is what happens when your leader is really a pissant. This is what happens. At the right time when the Huns arrives, your leader is some weakling like that.
Said Emperor, Ambrose guilt-tripped Theodosius like mad. In no time at all he had him begging for forgiveness, and it was only after he promised to start an anti-pagan crusade that he finally conceded. And so, in what became known as the Theodosian Decrees, Theodosius destroyed the last remnants of the faith that led Rome to greatness. Temples to Jupiter and Venus were destroyed, holidays were turned into workdays, and sacrifices and Vestal virgins banned. The old Roman faith was dead.
Oh, what an asshole. He stopped virgin sacrifices? Oh no. Let's be honest, that's the one best thing that he did.
Soon after Justina died, Theodosius left the West in Arbogast's hands. The moment he left, Arbogast began ignoring any and all requests and edicts made by Valentinian II, refusing to be dismissed and ruling with a barbaric fist. Complaining to Theodosius about it, Valentinian was completely ignored. Being a nuisance, powerless, and helpless, days later he was found hanging in his room, just in time for that 88th civil war. Cause after Valentinian's sister bullied Theodosius into avenging him, he caved in and named his youngest son Honorius as the new Western Augustus, having already named the eldest Arcadius as the Eastern one. And it's here that the downhill slide accelerates like hell. For around then, some Visigoths had restarted to ransack Thrace, with Stilicho being sent to stop them. Despite succeeding, Stilicho was unable to capture their leader, the leader that would become the most infamous Goth in all of history. Cursed be his name, Alaric. As Theodosius went to recruit barbarians into his army, because of course, he approached Alaric with an offer, who accepted his chance to kill Romans by the thousands. For thereafter, Arbogast named his own pet Augustus, Eugenius, revolting against Theodosius and pretended to tolerate paganism to rally support, despite that they were Nicaeans, but well. Theodosius thus gathered 60,000 men in total, led by his two best generals, Stilicho of course, and an Illyrian general, named after Constantius, with Alaric acting as his own separate entity. And thus the Battle of the Frigidus River started with the traitors and barbarians slaughtering each other, followed by an offer of treason by one of Arbogast's divisions, and ending with a final clash where an alpine storm surged into the battlefield and threw the traitors' arrows and spears right back at them. Arbogast then fled and killed himself, with Eugenius being captured and denied mercy.
What are the chances the storm arrived right then, man? Lightning happens just at the right time at the right place. Storms arrive at the right time and right place. This history is, I think we should take it with a bit grain of salt, I guess.
As part of their pro-pagan LARP, the altar of victory had been restored, but Theodosius quickly dealt with it, for the last time. And now Theodosius was the sole emperor of the whole Roman Empire. For 4 months, catching a fatal sickness right after. Doomed to death, Theodosius dragged Stilicho to a final private conversation. In his last words, he named Stilicho, the nearest half-barbarian, as the regent of both of his sons, and then died. Why did he choose to only tell Stilicho this vital wish? Well, like son, like father. Stilicho was then
He told him that and there was no witness. How are people going to believe him? Man, what an idiot.
recognized as Honorius' regent, but Arcadius had already fallen to the claws of a general named Rufinus, who hated Stilicho and denied his claims of regency. With his sudden death, the shit heirs he left behind, and the condition the empire was in, its division between east and west, this time would be permanent. Never again would Rome be fully reunited. As for Alaric, he had already pillaged all the way.
Alright, I don't know much about after Rome thing about Byzantine Empire. Isn't it better that it was divided like this? Otherwise, I guess Byzantine Empire wouldn't have survived, right? But no, maybe it would have survived since Constantinople has, massive walls and it was not easy to, invade that. That was the whole point. That's why, Constantine made it, another capital. So maybe it would have been, as when the, Huns basically raided the entire Roman Empire and, crossed it. Constantinople and its region would have survived anyway because of the walls. So it would automatically create, two parts of the Roman Empire. Or maybe just I don't know. Is only Constantinople survives and entire Rome falls apart? What happens? What is Byzantine Empire? How does it survive? It's gonna be awesome, man. This video, next video, even though it's sad one, it will clear things up for me. And then as soon as Doherty makes Byzantine Empire videos, I'm gonna react to that too.
To Athens, forcing Stilicho to gather Theodosius' army and sail there to stop him. And just as Stilicho had encircled and was about to crush the Goths, he received an order from Arcadius, manipulated by Rufinus, to return the eastern legions to him. Pissed but loyal, Stilicho complied. And once the legions got there, led by a Goth named Gaius, some Goths in his command went and murdered Rufinus outright to satiate their bloodlust. To no benefit though, as he was then replaced by Eutropius. And just look at this guy's bust, by Deus, it really is the end times. Through sheer ingratitude, he was the one to order Stilicho back to the west, and just to spite him, he named Alaric, the ransacking Gothic king, as Eastern Rome's Magister Militum, with all of its benefits. As he returned west, not only did he find that Ambrose had died, but that Eutropius had swayed the governor of Africa into his side, making him cut the grain shipments to Rome. Refusing to let the citizens starve, Stilicho allied with the governor's disgruntled brother against him, sending him with his army and killing him. And just as he had made a new competent ally while celebrating, he fell down some stairs, unironically, and died. And as Eutropius let Alaric terrorize the civilians unchallenged, he heard reports of a strange new horde encroaching on the Danube. And so he led some legions north to go face this new enemy, and he was lucky to have returned with his life. After this incident, some Gothic federati in Anatolia began to
Did he try to attack the Huns and got his ass kicked? Damn.
threaten Constantinople, and when Eutropius sent Gaius to go deal with them, he joined them, and together conspired against him. Who saw that one coming? Everyone did. Once Gaius had killed him, he allied with the Eastern Empress herself, Aelia Eudoxia, who would now rule the East, while her husband Arcadius continued battling the corner. Gaius then went to Constantinople to terrorize the plebs, but then the plebs revolted and slaughtered this man. Fleeing north, he sought to ally with the monsters beyond to invade Rome, returning only as a head in a box. What lay beyond was the enemy of all. As they conquered more and more lands, the barbarians on their way increasingly fled west. This time, it was the Vandals, invading Noricum to get away. Getting invaded by a gigantic horde of his own people, Stilicho was forced to gather all of his legions and march north to prove where his loyalties truly laid. After an intense battle, Stilicho defeated the barbarians, but could only push them out of the empire. For as we'll see, these are the same Vandals that would immortalize their name as an insult. Stilicho's victory was short-lived though, as marching north left Italy defenseless, and in no time at all, Alaric had invaded and began ransacking everything. He rushed south like a madman, taking 20k Vandals to use as meat shields and drive Alaric away. Once they met in battle, being Easter Sunday, Stilicho let a barbarian be technically in command, and what ensued was a slaughter of both Goths and Vandals. Defeated, Alaric fled west, stopping Verona to counterattack, but Stilicho was having none of it and this time slaughtered most of the Gothic hordes, sending the survivors fleeing out of Italy. Having saved Honorius and Italy as a whole, Stilicho was handsomely rewarded, but he nevertheless remained worried, seeing how easily frightened Mediolanum was. And thus he had the western capital moved to the swamps of Ravenna, sending Honorius there to continue being useless. But as the Huns continued to expand, the last vestiges of the Visigoths were finally pushed west, totaling over 100,000 and invaded the empire, crossing the Alps and sacking their way to Florence. As they nearly took the city, Stilicho rushed into battle.
Damn, how messed up is this? The Huns arrives to, destroy everything. But it's not just Huns that they have to worry about. Huns are pushing out the other, Goths and Visigoths tribes inside. So they have nowhere else to go but to invade Rome. So Visigoths now have to invade the Rome. Otherwise, where the hell would they go? Huns are going to kill them. So Romans are now in the first wave, they have to defend against Visigoths. And with the last wave, the Huns are gonna be there. That's just effed up, man.
Battle and crushed the Gothic horde so fast and swiftly that he didn't suffer a single casualty that day, killing their king, taking his soldiers for his army, and enslaving his entire horde. After selling most of the slaves, Stilicho allowed the families of the Goths subdued under his service to live. But what's really important is that he retook Eastern Illyria back to the Western Empire, making it match with the history book pictures and it's 406 AD. The real pain starts now. For as noble as Stilicho's insistence on imperial reunification was, not even with Eudoxia's death would it become a reality. Yeah, pregnancy complications. At least she had Theodosius II, so no Eastern civil wars. Yet. And with Arcadius being barely competent enough to know how to breathe, she was replaced by the brilliant general, Anthemius. It wasn't long till Arcadius died as well, leaving the empire to his son, Theodosius II. But all Anthemius could think about was that the Huns had begun raiding the Danube, and so he gathered an army to face them, and it was proof of his skill that he returned in one piece, having witnessed something completely out of this world. The traumatic experience convinced him of the danger the empire faced, and so he embarked on one of the most ambitious projects in history. He was going to build a wall. And so he did, building a big wall to protect Constantinople, then a second bigger wall behind it, then built another frontal wall, dug a long moat between them, and then built an even bigger wall behind it all with gigantic watchtowers. In honor of Theodosius II, it was named the Theodosian Walls, which would protect Constantinople and thus the Eastern Empire for 1,000 years. But even with the capital now protected...
Okay, so he built the wall, man. So the wall, so the Byzantium was already hard to, siege, I guess. But not as hard as it was later on, because he built all these walls. He made it even more difficult. That's why it lasted another 1,000 years or something. Until 15th century, if I'm not mistaken, where Ottomans took it down. So it's gonna last for that long. That's just ridiculous, man.
The Huns' continuous expansion had reached all the way into Germania, pushing the Vandals, Burgundians, Alemanni, and many other tribes like the Suebi further west, with the Franks having already invaded the empire for a while. Caught between the Huns and the Rhine, a curse day arose, as the turbulent Rhine River suddenly and mysteriously froze, with no legions on the other side to guard it. This day, the last of the year, would forever be remembered as the crossing of the Rhine, as hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of barbarians walked through the frozen river and started the greatest invasion Gaul had ever seen. Learning of this, a pleb soldier in Britannia took advantage of the crisis, deposing the governor and declaring himself Augustus. His name? Constantine. And nope, no relation at all. Sensing opportunity in the chaos,
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? Everybody calls themselves Caesar and Augustus as soon as those two great emperors came. And now people are starting to call themselves Constantine. There should be a rule, man. Unless you're good, and if people give you a title, that's fine. You cannot call yourself something like this. This is just effed up, man. He's gonna call himself Constantine, really? Constantine never lost a battle. Who are you, man?
Constantine then took all legions he could from Britannia and landed in Gaul, thus leaving the already weakened island near defenseless. And in Gaul, as the horde sacked every single city in the Rhine, not Constantine began allying with some of the tribes, uniting forces and attacking all who defied their power. Selling himself as their savior, soon the entire west fell to him, which left Stilicho in the worst possible position. As he sent his armies to go face the usurper, he stayed in Italy in case another horde invaded the Danube. Or worse, the leeches in Honorius' court got a hold of him. As they faced fake Constantine, the legions almost caught him, but were driven back once he summoned his endless barbarian allies. Pushed back, another barbarian tribe had taken over the Alpine passes, and impossible to dislodge, they forced the legions to pay a toll just to pass into Italy, their own lands. And as things went to shit, important news from all over began arriving all at once. Like 1. Arcadius dying in the east, presenting an opportunity of a reunification. 2. A Theodosius-related revolt had broken out in Hispania. And 3. Alaric had marched to Noricum with what remained of his Goths, demanding a tribute to not cause trouble again. And as Alaric tried rebuilding his hordes, he kept terrorizing the civilians, among them a skilled teenage soldier they had captured from Moesia. And with Stilicho demanding Alaric to stop, the teenager was then sent beyond the Danube, to await his fate from those even Alaric grew to fear. Tackling one disaster at a time, Stilicho forced the senators down in Rome to shut Alaric up, not that he thought it would work. Left fake Constantine to deal with the Theodosian revolt, and as for Arcadius, Stilicho had to risk leaving Honorius alone so he could try to reunite the empire under his regency. But even before he left Ravenna, the leechiest leech of all, Olympius, crawled out of the sewer and barraged Honorius with lies, saying Stilicho was gonna overthrow Theodosius and that he was conspiring with Alaric to conquer Rome for themselves. Instantly fooled, Honorius made Olympius his new top general, and had all loyal men under Stilicho's command purged and killed. Once he found out, Stilicho was left only with the Gothic Federati he had subdued under his command.
Oh, for God's sake. First of all, there's a Visigoth a-hole leader inside Rome and has a Roman title of, military dictator or something. So there's that to worry about. In the, France side, Franks, I guess, has invaded Rome near Britain. Even in that, there are some a-holes Romans allying himself with them to their own gain, rather than thinking about what about Rome. So there's so many people to think about. He cannot just go and attack one side, because he doesn't have just two sides. He has to think about those Franks, that Visigoth who has the title of military dictator. He has to worry about that. He has to worry about the Huns, and most of all, he has to worry about all the people who's defecting in his own empire. People are just stabbing each other left and right again. This is the biggest issue. Patriotism should be a thing, and so far in past few videos I'm seeing there is no such thing in Rome. People are just for their own gain stabbing each other, not saying that barbarians at the gates, we are all gonna get burned.
Command.
And if the Huns are anything like the Mongolians, Huns are the ancestor of Mongolians apparently, and Mongolians were really barbaric. They didn't leave any survivor. If they are like that, everybody's dying.
With the only way to come out of this alive being using these barbarian hordes to crush the Emperor's Roman legions in the middle of a gigantic invasion and 2 civil wars, Stilicho refused to do so. He would not plunge the empire into deeper chaos, and if it was to cost his life, even over blatant lies, then so be it. Awaiting his fate, Honorius' troops soon arrived at the church he had taken residence in Ravenna, proclaiming he was to be executed. Stilicho did not resist, and was taken into custody. After a lifetime of serving Rome, killing barbarians, and doing his best to reunite the empire, Stilicho was beheaded, named a traitor to the people he so protected. The tragedy of Flavius Stilicho would not go long unrepeated. After having killing his own best,
I think he was too loyal. I think he should have seen it like I'm the only one who's competent around. I'm the only one who can save Rome. And the best thing to do is take the empire for myself. And he should have done some, planning and some kind of conspiracy to, overthrow people and take the whole empire for himself. Generate some kind of stability and then attack people. But I guess it was too much because when he came in the scene, it was already too late. Visigoths were inside. There were already traitors inside. I don't know if that could have been done, but at least he should have tried. He tried to be so loyal that, in the end he died. And he was the only competent guy left around.
General concerning news arrived from the west. Basically, fake Constantine had crushed the Theodosian revolt, triggering an even bigger one in its place, and up north Britannia was getting utterly raped by Saxon pirates, begging for help. And instead of protecting his empire, Honorius just recognized the usurper as a legitimate co-Augustus over the west, and proclaimed Britannia was to be abandoned to its fate, never to return to Roman rule. Right after, he was then convinced by Olympius to deal with the Goths once and for all. But no, not as in killing the barbarians that kept sacking the empire. No, that was too hard. But instead their women and children. That, you see, was much easier. And after slaughtering all those women and children, Honorius declared victory, and returned to being a useless NEET. Obviously, without Stilicho to subdue them, nor the means to perpetuate their evil, the Gothic Federati all fled to join Alaric, who now had no one left to stop him. Now again leading tens of thousands of Visigoths, Alaric again invaded Italy, demanding all the captured Gothic slaves to increase his horde. Honorius refused, despite having no way of enforcing this refusal, and so Alaric razed Italy once more, but didn't march on Ravenna, the new capital, nor to Mediolanum, the nearby biggest city. No, instead Alaric kept marching south, marching to Rome. Once he arrived, being held back only by the Aurelian walls, Alaric demanded all Gothic slaves in the city to be freed to bolster his horde's numbers. Begging for help from the emperor, Rome was ignored by Honorius, far more worried about his dumb pride than anything else. Facing starvation, the senators of Rome caved in to all of Alaric's demands, freeing the Goths and doubling the size of his horde. Now demanding to be granted leadership of all Roman armies, Honorius refused him again, and so Alaric continued sieging Rome, briefly elevating a puppet Augustus, who after refusing to follow the demon's orders, was promptly gotten rid of. It was only after a Gothic horde began approaching Ravenna, led by Alaric's brother, Atulf, that Honorius dropped his pride, and gave in to all of Alaric's demands. But you see, peace was never what Alaric was after. And so he moved the goalposts, and demanded Honorius should be deposed and exiled. Hearing of the emergency, and seeking to counterfeit Constantine's invasion of Italy, Anthemius sent 4,000 new soldiers to bolster Ravenna's defenses, refueling Honorius' ego, who then refused Alaric again. Not that it changed anything, as Alaric had already gotten most of what he wanted. Most, as there was still one thing left. For over 1,000 years, Rome had stood proudly as the conqueror of the world. No enemy so brutal they couldn't defeat, no challenge too great to overcome. But with time came change, and with poor change, degradation and weakness. For as long as there were Romans to keep the fires alive, they kept at bay those who would have them extinguished. The gods that blessed them forsaken, the heroes that defended them long dead. And so, what was once too horrible to contemplate became a cruel reality. History forever remembers the 24th of August, 4010 AD. The year of barbarians at the gates.
Damn. This is really sad to see, man. Rome has always been powerhouse, but here they are just getting defeated like this. We've seen this built up for past few episodes. I mean, treachery was getting high, weaklings were getting in power, and this was bound to happen. But still, seeing this, it's just ridiculous how powerful Rome once was, and they're just half right now.
For the first time in 800 years, Rome had been sacked by a barbarian horde. The great buildings of the city were turned into ruins. The tombs of past emperors were desecrated, their ashes lost forever. Hundreds of thousands of Romans were killed, raped, and reduced to misery. The colossal statue of Deus Sol Invictus was brought down and demolished. The age of classical civilization was at an end. Ever nearer came the Dark Ages. When Honorius was informed that Rome had been attacked, he got very sad, thinking that his favorite pet, a chicken named Rome, had died. When explained that the chicken was fine, Honorius breathed a sigh of relief and returned to not caring.
Oh my god, I wanna stab him in the fucking face. At the first I'm like, oh okay, he's sad for Rome, and he's sad for his pet.
Not even the emperor's own sister, Galla Placidia, would be safe, having been captured by Alaric and made his slave. After sacking Rome, Alaric went to ravage southern Italy, including Campania, Nola, and Capua. As they prepared to cross into Sicily, Alaric, having caused enough death and suffering to forever haunt history, succumbed to a fever and died, being succeeded by his brother, Atulf, who was acclaimed the new Visigothic king and took Galla Placidia as his wife, who he then raped as he pleased. And in Ravenna, we find that even Honorius realized how incompetent Olympius was. No, he didn't. Instead, Constantius rose through the ranks high enough to directly influence the emperor's decisions, who then made him his new top general, because he decided he didn't like sharing power with fake Constantine after all, and so sent Constantius to go kill the man he had so recently made Augustus. And in Constantinople, having finished the Theodosian walls for good, Anthemius then disappeared from the historical records, but not before a descendant of Procopius had married his daughter and had a son with his name. And with the Eastern Emperor still a child, Theodosius II's regency was then led by his 15-year-old sister, Aelia Pulcheria, but one of the many powerful women of the era. It really was the end times. Later crossing into Gaul, Constantius found fake Constantine already being besieged by counter-rebels. So Constantius killed them all, took their place, and when Constantine asked for help from the Burgundians, they instead named a Gallic noble, Jovinus, as Augustus. Having then killed the usurper, Constantius then learned...
Of course, I mean, why would they care? They just need a puppet. They're like, yeah, go ahead, die, who cares? We're gonna raise another one.
Atulf had pillaged his way north of Italy. Infuriating him so much he demanded them to leave Italy already, which they did, invading Gaul this time. Suppressing his desire to avenge the sack of Rome, Constantius promised to let them go if they fought off the Burgundians and Jovinus up north. As for Galla Placidia, she gave birth to a Goth rape baby, who soon after died, thank Deus. And after the deal had been fulfilled, Constantius then blocked the Visigoths into starvation, and so Atulf went and invaded Hispania, getting killed on the way there by starving Goths. Making their life a living hell, the Visigoths agreed that, in exchange for food, they would free Galla Placidia and attack the invading Vandals, who had been flooding in ever since fake Constantine took power. As the barbarians killed each other and the Vandals were somewhat contained, Constantius then allowed the Visigoths to temporarily settle in Aquitania, and return west to deliver the freed Galla. And so the creepy Honorius, finding his sister very hot, gave her as a prize to Constantius, marrying her to him and naming him his co-Augustus. And well, now Emperor and Empress, they would have two children, Honoria and Valentinian III. Both proof that daughters and sons don't always take after their mothers and fathers. And being bestowed a crumbling empire, Constantius III picked up where Stilicho left off, seeking to reunite the empire, drive out the barbarians from the empire, and restore Rome to its former glory. Then he caught a fever and died. Seconds after his death, creepy Honorius then began making advances on his sister while she mourned, which creeped her out so much that she sailed with her children away to Constantinople. And being left all alone, Honorius continued on living as he always had, laying around, babbling like an idiot as the world around him fell apart. But for one exception. One day, Honorius turned it all around and decided for once to do the best possible thing he could do for the empire, and died after ruling Rome for a god-awful 30 years.
Yeah, hyped it up like he did something. Oh no, he just died. That's the best thing he did.
Behind him, Honorius left an empire at the precipice of collapse. The borders were overtaken by barbarians, Roman unity was destroyed over incompetence, lies, and treason, entire provinces were lost with pure disregard, and the eternal city, the founding light of civilization, was all but extinguished. Once more, Rome stood at its weakest, and now about to face an enemy far worse than any previous one, an enemy that conquered all Germanic lands the Romans so struggled against for centuries. A new dark age was inevitable. This world was doomed to return to uncivilized barbarity. But where the light of civilization once shined bright, its embers still flared. True Romans still lived, those who would fight for its values no matter what they had to sacrifice. Having survived and returned from imprisonment by the Huns, a hero would ensure the embers were preserved to grant light to the world once more. For these were times of tragic heroes, the times of Flavius Aetius. Behind Aetius, the last remnants of Rome's soldiers would unite, among them the last living descendants of Rome's old patricians. Of his followers and future soldiers, one patrician kid would share his values and ambitions more than any other, those to preserve civilization and save Rome from its countless enemies. Through courage and determination, Majorian would follow his dreams to the very end. As from beyond the empire, building up on the Rhine and Danube rivers, the Huns had completely conquered all enemies they met, with the weakened empire as their next target. Their endless hordes eager for blood, they all united under one leader, as one army with one purpose. And from the void, a declaration was made. These are the death throes of Rome. The light of civilization dims and scatters. And if such precious time is left to hide your woman, for your children to cry, even at the moment of your final defeat, you will take no comfort in oblivion, for I am coming for you. I ride with 1,000,000 warriors, I bring the end of days, I am the scourge of God, and I will watch your world burn.
Is that Attila? Oh, it's the end. They're gonna show it in the next episode. Oh my god, this was such a sad episode. Some of the great names did arise in Rome, but they were just scratching and clawing just to survive, man. There was too much going on around, too much. Too many people raiding, at the same time their own people were stabbing each other. Even around this time, people didn't see like this is really critical time. This is not like some other time. 1,000 years of Roman history is about to fall. This is not a joke, something heavy is coming. This is not the time to stab each other in the back. If in the end they would have united, I think Rome would have stand some chance. But if the Huns are anything like the Mongolians were, I don't see it. Because it doesn't matter how great Romans are, sometimes bloodlust, barbaric tribe with massive numbers will overpower anything. That's what happens when Genghis Khan was around in Mongolia. Damn, Rome is about to fall. This was a really, really sad video. There's still one video left, the fall of Rome. I guess there's going to be one sadder video than this one. People are just gonna die left and right. No hero will rise, I guess. The Huns will basically ransack everything. I guess Constantinople will survive, obviously, because Byzantine Empire was still around after this. So yeah. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe.